Hello and welcome to On the Move, a show about what's going on in Hampton Roads featuring community leaders who are moving the region forward. I'm Thomas Becker with Hampton Roads Transit, and today we continue our series on emergency preparedness and the hurricane season. We're here with Lawrence Mason, Emergency Manager with Hampton Roads Transit. Welcome. I guess we're welcome here, but
yes, thank you.
We're now going to talk about kind of HRT's perspective when it comes to emergency management. Set it up for us. What does our emergency management look like? It's one of the few agencies in the state with its own dedicated personnel.
Yep, so we are one of the few transit agencies in Virginia that have any sort of dedicated emergency management or preparedness team. At Hampton Roads Transit, we are a team of two, embedded in our safety, risk, and emergency management department. And we are one half of our public safety team at Hampton Roads Transit in partnership with our Department of Security Services. We cover all hazards and all threats to our public transit network, and also work really closely with all of the cities in and outside of the HRT service area.
And let's pick up on that because we talked to Ricky from Norfolk. So how do you work with those cities? How do you coordinate?
So it's all about communication. It really boils down to having really good communication with and from those partners in our cities that we serve, throughout the region, and at the state and federal level. Sharing information, sharing resources, collaborating on different efforts, to help educate the public, help exercise plans, test our resource capabilities, as well as different training events and things like that. So it's all about close networking, communication, collaboration.
And planning is key. So how do you plan for any type of emergency? That must be daunting.
It is, because you can go down the what if rabbit hole and you'll never end up with a final plan. And it's a risk and capabilities based assessment process where we really sit down and we look at what are the most likely threats and hazards to our transit network as well as the localities we operate in, and then we look at what mitigations we can put in place to help prevent them or at least make them less impactful to people when they do occur.
Yeah. What constitutes an emergency? Is there like a matrix? Because I know in my world of media communications and crisis communications, not everything's a crisis, right? Not everything's an emergency, but what is an emergency in your mind?
Well, really what it boils down to is anything that has the potential to harm life and property. And there's a whole scale of what that looks like, from very minor things all the way to catastrophic disasters. And we at HRT use the FEMA incident typing system, which categorizes emergencies into 5 categories, 1 through 5. And a level 1 or a type 1, which is your huge catastrophic disasters.
All hands on deck working with the cities.
Correct. A lot of integrated operations at that point. All the way to type 5 is very minor, something that you may be able to handle, in-house, very few people involved.
How'd you get into the field?
Well, I started my public safety career as a volunteer firefighter in northern New York. After that, I joined the U.S. Navy, where I served for 10 years. And in being in the submarine force, you learn a lot of different jobs. So that got me interested in how to learn new things and how to be a part of other teams that weren't necessarily, my base duty. And then from there, I was inspired by a lot of folks that I interacted with volunteering to help with disasters, as well as, some movies from my childhood, watching Twister as a kid and watching Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones, him being the head of emergency management during this big volcano eruption, really made me interested in EM as a career field.
That's a great story. I would imagine as a submariner, anything could be an emergency.
Oh yeah, it can be. And so you work really hard to train with the whole crew. You work really hard to learn the jobs and the things you need to know about other people's duties. So that way when an emergency happens, it's one team, one fight, and everyone comes home safe.
We talked to Ricky about emergency preparedness as we start hurricane season. What do you want our customers to know about our emergency preparedness as well as getting ready for potentially bad weather?
Sure. Well, I mean, at HRT, we are constantly evaluating, ongoing situations. We're constantly evaluating what's happening in the world and what's happening in Hampton Roads to make sure that we are a safe, secure, and resilient transit network that is reliable to our customer base and to anyone that uses it. But that also postures us as a resource to the localities to help transport those people that may not have their own transportation, just like any other day. And then during those major seasons that we have, especially when we're talking about severe weather, going into hurricane season right now, the same information that folks hear year to year is the same information we have because it's so important. Making sure that you make a plan. A plan to shelter in place, a plan to evacuate, knowing your flood zone and your evacuation zone, making a kit to have emergency supplies available when you need them. Have one at home, have one in the car. And also making sure that you have a way to receive alerts and warnings and weather watches, because when those pieces of information come out, they're meant to save your life. And making sure you're really listening when those warnings come out.
Well, thank you for joining us here on The Move, and thank you for giving us a little behind the scenes of how you plan and act and prepare for an emergency.
Of course.
And thank you for joining us for On The Move. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. See you again soon. Thanks for watching On The Move. Next week we'll have part 3 of our special series on emergency preparedness and the hurricane season. We'll be joined by Jamie Rome. He's the Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center. Be sure to subscribe.